The Vanishing Heiress, a Frank Murray investigation, narrated by Frank Murray, private investigator. The thing about missing persons cases is that most of them aren't really missing. They're hiding, running from debt, from a bad marriage, from responsibilities they can't handle. My job isn't to judge. It's to find them and let whoever hired me deal with the rest. But every once in a while, you get a case where someone doesn't want to be found, and someone else really wants them to stay lost. This is one of those cases. The name's Frank Murray, and I work out a cramped office above Chen's Golden Dragon restaurant on 4th Street. The smell of fried rice has permanently embedded itself into my furniture, my clothes, and probably my soul. My secretary is a coffee maker that's older than most marriages, and my filing cabinet still sticks every damn time I try to open it. The neon sign outside flickers, Murray Investigations, in red letters that sputter and die on humid nights. I'm not rich. I'm not famous. Most days I'm tailing unfaithful husbands or tracking down someone's prize terrier. But I'm resilient, I'm dedicated, and I get the job done. It's not much a motto, but it's kept me in business for 15 years. It was a Thursday morning when Victoria Ashford walked into my life. And brother, she was the kind of woman who made you forget about the coffee stains on your tie and the crack in your office window. Mid-30s, blonde hair pulled back in a way that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Wearing a pearl gray suit that screamed old money. Her heels clicked on my cheap linoleum like a countdown timer. "Mr. Murray," she said, her voice carrying that finishing school polish that makes consonants sound like they're worth something. "I need your help finding my sister." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the one with the wobbly leg I kept meaning to fix. "Have a seat. Tell me everything." What Victoria told me over the next hour would lead me into the darkest corners of wealth and privilege, where family legacies are worth more than human lives, and where some secrets are buried so deep that digging them up might just get you buried too. The missing woman's name was Catherine Ashford, age 28, youngest daughter of the late Harrison Ashford III. A name that carried weight in this city. The Ashfords owned half the downtown real estate, sat on every important board, and had enough money to make problems disappear. Catherine was supposed to inherit a trust fund worth $40 million on her 30th birthday, just 2 years away. 3 weeks ago, she vanished. She was supposed to meet me for lunch, Victoria explained, her fingers twisting a tissue in her lap. We had reservations at Marcello's. Catherine never misses appointments. She's the most punctual person I know. When she didn't show, I called her. No answer. I went to her apartment. Her doorman said she'd left that morning with a suitcase and hadn't returned. She say where she was going? Victoria shook her head. Nothing. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Her credit cards haven't been used. Her bank accounts are untouched. It's like she stepped off the face of the earth. I leaned back in my chair, which groaned its usual complaint. "Did you file a police report?" "Of course." They said she's an adult, probably left voluntarily, told me to wait it out. Victoria's jaw tightened. "But Mr. Murray, my sister wouldn't just leave. Not without telling me. Not without a word. Something happened to her." "What about enemies? Anyone who want to hurt her?" Victoria's laugh was bitter. "We're Ashfords. We have nothing but enemies. Business rivals, people who've lost us in court, failed investment partners. Take your pick. Family?" Something flickered in Victoria's eyes, there and gone, like a fish beneath dark water. "What about family? Anyone in the family who might benefit from Catherine's disappearance?" "The trust fund reverts to the estate if she dies before 30, Victoria said slowly. "It would be divided among the remaining heirs. But no one in our family would." "Money makes people do things they swore they'd never do," I interrupted. "I've seen mothers steal from daughters, brothers frame brothers. When the numbers get high enough, people stop being people and start being problems to solve." Victoria stood abruptly, her composure cracking. "My family has issues, Mr. Murray, but we don't kill each other. Find my sister. Find out what happened. I'll pay whatever it takes." She dropped an envelope on my desk. Inside was a retainer that would cover my rent for 6 months and leave enough for that new filing cabinet I've been eyeing. "I'll find her," I said. "But Miss Ashford, you need to prepare yourself. Sometimes what we find isn't what we hoped for. "I just need to know," Victoria whispered. "Even if it's the worst. I need to know." After she left, I sat in my office and stared at the envelope. My instincts were already screaming. Rich girl with a huge trust fund vanishes 3 weeks before it vests? That's not running away. That's someone making sure she doesn't make it to her birthday. I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon. It was past noon barely, and got to work. Catherine Ashford's apartment was in the Meridian Towers, the kind of building where the doorman wears white gloves and knows your name. I flashed my license at him, a guy named Marcus with shoulders like a linebacker, and asked about the day Catherine left. She came down around 10:30. Marcus said, checking his logbook, had a rolling suitcase. Looked like she was going on a trip. I asked if she needed a taxi, but she said someone was picking her up. She say who? Nope, just said a friend. She seemed, I don't know, nervous? Kept looking at her phone. Then this black sedan pulled up. She got in, and that's the last I saw her. You get plate number? Marcus shook his head. Didn't think anything of it at the time. Miss Ashford traveled a lot. I thanked him and took the elevator to the 23rd floor. Catherine's apartment was everything you'd expect. High ceilings, hardwood floors, abstract art that probably cost more than my car. The place had been cleaned recently, but I've got eyes trained to see what shouldn't be there and notice what should be missing. Her laptop was gone. So was her phone charger. The bathroom had a half-full bottle of prescription medication, Ambien, that she'd left behind. People who plan to disappear don't leave their sleep aids. The closet was full of expensive clothes, but there were gaps where things had been removed. Maybe a week's worth of outfits. I found her calendar on the kitchen counter, one of those expensive leather-bound planners. The entry stopped 3 days before she vanished. The last one read, "Dinner with V. Discuss situation." V. Victoria? Or someone else? I photographed everything, made notes, and was about to leave when I noticed something odd. On the corner of her desk was a stack of mail, mostly junk, but one envelope caught my eye. It was addressed to Catherine, but it had been opened and then carefully placed back in the stack. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. "You can't run from this. We need to talk. J. J. Another initial. Another question mark." I pocketed the note and left the building, my mind already working through possibilities. Catherine was spooked about something. She'd had dinner with V to discuss a situation. Then she received a cryptic note from J. 3 days later, she packed a bag and left, running from something or someone. My next stop was the Ashford family estate, a sprawling mansion in the old money part town, where the houses hide behind iron gates and the lawns are maintained by teams of gardeners who know better than to make eye contact with the residents. I'd called ahead. Victoria had given me her family's information and was meeting with Catherine's older brother, James Ashford. The J from the note? Maybe. James was 42, with the kind of tan you get on yachts and the kind of haircut that cost 3 figures. He met me in what he called the morning room, which was bigger than my entire apartment and filled with furniture that probably predated the Civil War. "Mr. Murray," he said, shaking my hand with a grip that was just a little too firm. "Victoria said you'd be coming around. Terrible business. Catherine disappearing like this." "You don't seem too worried," I observed, taking the seat he offered. James poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter without offering me one. Catherine has always been dramatic, impulsive. I suspect she's off finding herself on some beach in Thailand, spending father's money and ignoring her responsibilities. Does she often do that? Often enough. James took a sip, studying me over the rim of his glass. Our sister has never quite understood the weight of being an Ashford, the obligations, the expectations. What kind of obligations? Family business, board meetings, maintaining our position in society. Catherine treated it all like a joke. His voice had an edge now, sharp as broken glass. She was supposed to take her seat on the Ashford Foundation board last year. She declined, said she wanted to find her own path, as if $40 million wasn't path enough. That $40 million, I said carefully, if Catherine doesn't make it to her 30th birthday, where does it go? James smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. divided among the surviving heirs. Victoria, myself, and our cousin Edward. But that's 2 years away, Mr. Murray. I'm not holding my breath. Did you write your sister a note recently? Something about we need to talk? The smile vanished. I write Catherine plenty of notes. She rarely responds. If you're implying something, Mr. Murray, I suggest you be direct about it. I stood up. I'm not implying anything. Just gathering information. Though I notice you seem more annoyed than worried about your missing sister. When you've known Catherine as long as I have, James said coldly, you learn that her dramas usually resolve themselves. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting. He didn't walk me out. I found my own way to the door, passing through hallways lined with portraits of dead Ashfords, all of them looking down their painted noses at the PI who didn't belong. But as I reached my car, I glanced back at the mansion and saw someone watching me from a second-floor window. A woman, older, with dark hair. She vanished as soon as she realized I'd spotted her. The Ashford family had secrets, and I was starting to think Catherine's disappearance was just the latest in a long line of them. I spent the next 2 days digging into Catherine's life. Bank records. Victoria had given me power of attorney for the investigation. Showed regular expenses at the same coffee shop, a bookstore, and a small art gallery in the warehouse district. Nothing unusual until 2 months ago when she made a cash withdrawal of $50,000. 50 grand in cash. That's not vacation money. That's running money. Or paying someone off money. I visited the coffee shop first, a hipster place called The Grind, where the baristas had opinions about water temperature and the coffee cost more per cup than my hourly rate. The kid behind the counter, piercings, sleeve tattoos, name tag reading Zoe, remembered Catherine immediately. Yeah, Catherine, she's the best. Always tips well. Actually remembers my name. Haven't seen her in a while, though. She come in with anyone regularly? Zoe thought about it. Sometimes she'd meet this guy. Older, maybe 50s? Salt and pepper hair. Always wore nice suits. They'd sit in the corner and talk for hours. Looked intense, you know? Like serious conversations. You catch a name? Nah, sorry. But I got the feeling he made her nervous. She'd fidget with her cup, look around a lot. Not like when she was here with her friends. Then she was all relaxed and laughing. I showed her a photo of James. This the guy? Zoe shook her head. Nope. This guy was different. Rougher around the edges, if that makes sense. Like he was wearing the suit, but it didn't quite fit who he was. I thanked her and moved on to the art gallery. It was a small place, barely more than a converted warehouse space, showing what they called emerging artists. The owner was a woman in her 60s named Margaret Reed, who looked at me with suspicion until I explained I was trying to find Catherine. That poor girl, Margaret said, her expression softening. She came in here every week, sometimes twice a week. She had a real eye for art, not like these trust fund kids who buy whatever's trendy. Catherine actually felt the work. She ever mentioned being worried about anything? Anyone bothering her? Margaret hesitated. About 3 months ago, she seemed different, distracted. She bought a painting from one of our artists. Beautiful piece, abstract, lots of dark blues and grays. When she came to pick it up, she asked me if someone could store something for her. Somewhere safe, somewhere her family wouldn't look. My pulse quickened. What was it? She left a sealed envelope. Made me promise not to open it, not to tell anyone about it. Said if anything ever happened to her, I should give it to the police. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Murray, I think she knew she was in danger. I need that envelope. Margaret led me to a back office cluttered with receipts and inventory sheets. From a locked drawer, she pulled out a manila envelope with Catherine's name written on the front. She said if someone came looking for her, someone who genuinely wanted to help, I should give them this. Margaret handed it to me. Please find her. Please tell me she's okay. I couldn't promise her that, so I just nodded and left. I waited until I was back in my office, door locked, bourbon poured, before I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, and documents, bank statements, emails printed out, transaction records. The photos showed James Ashford with various men I didn't recognize. Meetings in parking garages, handshakes in shadowy doorways, exchanges of briefcases. The documents showed money moving through shell corporations, falsified board resolutions for the Ashford Foundation, misappropriated funds totaling somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million. James Ashford was embezzling from his own family foundation, and Catherine had found out. But there was more. Among the documents was a letter written in Catherine's handwriting. Victoria, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me. James is stealing from the foundation. I confronted him 3 weeks ago, and he told me to stay quiet or there would be consequences. I'm scared, V. I think he's going to do something. I've documented everything. Take this to the FBI, to the police, to anyone who will listen. Don't let him get away with this. Don't let him win. I love you. See, my hands shook as I put the letter down. This changed everything. Catherine hadn't run away. She'd been gathering evidence against her brother. And we found out he'd made sure she disappeared before she could expose him. But where was she? Was she hiding? Or was she already dead, buried somewhere the Ashford money could keep her hidden forever? I needed more information. I needed to find that man Catherine had been meeting at the coffee shop. I needed to trace her movements on the day she vanished. And I needed to do it without tipping off James that I knew what he'd done. I reached for my phone to call Victoria, then stopped. Something wasn't sitting right. Catherine's note said Victoria, if you're reading this, but she'd left the envelope with Margaret, not her sister. Why? Unless she didn't trust Victoria either. I sat back in my chair and stared at the evidence spread across my desk. 2 sisters, 1 brother, and $40 million on the line. Catherine had found out about James's embezzlement. But what if Victoria had known too? What if both siblings wanted Catherine out of the way? The envelope, the note, the warning about consequences. This wasn't just about embezzlement. This was about a family that would kill to keep their secrets buried. I spent the next day following money trails and making phone calls to people who owed me favors. The shell corporations James had used led back to a lawyer named Robert Whitmore, who had the kind of practice that specialized in making problems disappear. Legal problems, mostly, but I had a feeling his services extended beyond courtrooms. I was sitting in my office at 8 p.m., nursing a headache and a bourbon, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Murray. I answered, heavy breathing on the other end, then a woman's voice, barely above a whisper. Mr. Murray? This is Catherine Ashford. I need your help. I nearly dropped the phone. Catherine? Where are you? I can't tell you over the phone. It's not safe. They're listening. They've always been listening. Her voice was ragged with fear. I saw that my sister hired you. I need you to come alone. Tonight, I'll text you an address. Please, Mr. Murray. I don't have anyone else. Catherine, wait. The line went dead. 30 seconds later, a text came through with an address in the industrial district near the old shipping yards, the part of town where people go when they don't want to be found, or when they want to make sure someone else isn't found. Every instinct, I had screamed trap, but Catherine Ashford was alive, and she was scared, and she was asking for help. I checked my gun, a .38 revolver that had been with me since my days on the force, made sure it was loaded, and headed out into the night. The address led me to an abandoned warehouse, the kind of place where urban explorers go to take moody photographs and criminals go to conduct business that can't see daylight. My headlights cut through the darkness as I pulled up, illuminating graffiti-covered walls and broken windows. I parked and got out, keeping my hand near my gun. The warehouse door was ajar, creaking slightly in the wind. Catherine? I called out. No answer. Just the sound of distant traffic and my own heartbeat. I stepped inside, pulling out my flashlight. The beam cut through darkness thick with dust and decay. Old shipping crates were stacked haphazardly, creating a maze of shadows. Perfect place for an ambush. Mr. Murray. I spun around. Catherine Ashford stood 20 feet away, emerging from behind a crate. She looked nothing like her photos. Her hair was darker, cut short, and she wore jeans and a hoodie instead of designer clothes. But her eyes were the same, green and haunted. "Thank God you came," she said, relief flooding her voice. "I didn't know if I could trust you," but Victoria said, "Where have you been?" I interrupted, keeping my distance. "Everyone thinks you're dead. That's what they want people to think." Catherine moved closer, and I saw how thin she'd gotten, the dark circles under her eyes. "James tried to kill me, Mr. Murray. The night I left, he sent someone to my apartment. I barely got out." "Why didn't you go to the police?" "Because the police won't believe me. The Ashfords own half the city. James has judges in his pocket, cops on his payroll. I needed evidence, and I needed someone outside the family who could help me." Her eyes pleaded with me. "Did you find what I left at the gallery?" "I found it. I know about the embezzlement. I know you confronted him." Catherine's face crumpled. "He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I disappeared. I thought he was bluffing. Then I found out he'd hired someone, a man named Marcus Vane. He's a fixer, Mr. Murray. He makes problems go away permanently." Marcus Vane. The name rang a bell. I'd heard it in my old cop days. A cleaner, someone rich people called when they needed someone hurt or disappeared. Never convicted. Always suspected. "Catherine, we need to get you somewhere safe." "I can—" The sound of a gun cocking froze me mid-sentence. "I'm afraid Miss Ashford isn't going anywhere." I turned slowly. James Ashford stepped out of the shadows, a pistol pointed directly at my chest. Behind him came Victoria, her face cold and expressionless. "Hello, sister," Victoria said to Catherine. "You've caused us quite a bit of trouble." The pieces clicked together in my head, each one landing like a punch. Victoria hadn't hired me to find her sister. She'd hired me to flush her out. Catherine had been hiding successfully for 3 weeks until I'd started shaking trees, making noise, forcing her to reach out. I'd led them right to her. "You knew," I said to Victoria, "about the embezzlement. You and James are in it together." Victoria smiled, and it was colder than her brother's. "James isn't creative enough to pull off something this sophisticated. It was my idea. The foundation was just sitting there, all that money doing nothing but making us look charitable. Why shouldn't we use it?" "Because it's not yours," Catherine said, her voice shaking with anger. "It's supposed to help people. That's what Grandfather wanted." "Grandfather was a sentimental fool," James said. "Just like Father, just like you, Catherine. Always worried about what's right instead of what's profitable." "You were going to kill me," Catherine whispered. "Your own sister." $40 million, Victoria said simply. "Split 2 ways instead of 3. You were never going to join us." "Catherine, we gave you chances. We offered to cut you in. But you had to be the noble one, the one with principles." She said the word like it tasted bad. "So, yes, we decided to eliminate the problem." I'd been slowly moving my hand toward my gun, but James caught the movement. "Don't even think about it, Murray. Take it out slowly. 2 fingers put on the ground." I did as he said. No point getting shot before I could figure a way out of this. "Marcus Vane," I said, stalling for time. "You send him to kill Catherine." "Marcus is very good at his job," James said. "Unfortunately, Catherine managed to slip away before he could finish. But she made a mistake calling you. Let us write to her." Catherine was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "How could you? We're family." "Family is just another word for liability," Victoria said. "You should have taken the money and kept your mouth shut." She pulled out her own gun. Apparently everyone came armed to this reunion, except me. "The way this works is simple. You and Murray here are going to have an unfortunate accident. A PI and a troubled heiress, caught in a warehouse fire. They'll find your bodies in a few days, too burned to determine much. Marcus will handle the cleanup. People know I'm here. I lied. I sent the evidence to someone. If I don't check in, it goes to the FBI." James laughed. "Please, you're a 2-bit PI who works above a Chinese restaurant. You don't have backup plans. You barely have a plan at all." He wasn't wrong, but it still stung. Then I saw movement behind them, a figure emerging from the shadows, moving silently. My heart jumped. Another one of their people? Marcus Vane? But the figure raised something. and I recognized the shape of a gun. Before I could react, there was a sharp crack, and James stumbled forward, dropping his pistol. Another crack, and Victoria's gun fell from her hand as she grabbed her shoulder, screaming. The figure stepped into my flashlight beam, and I nearly laughed with relief. Detective Sarah Chun, my contact in the police department, stood with her service weapon drawn, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. LAPD, hands where I can see them. James and Victoria were too stunned to resist as officers swarmed in, cuffing them both. Victoria was still screaming about her shoulder. Flesh wound. She'd live. While James just stared at the ground, his empire crumbling around him. Detective Chin walked over to me, lowering her weapon. "You're welcome, by the way. How did you think I didn't notice you asking questions about Marcus Vane? I've been trying to nail that guy for years. When you started poking around the Ashford family, I figured something big was up. Been tailing you since yesterday." She grinned. "You're not as subtle as you think, Murray." Catherine collapsed against a crate, sobbing with relief. I went to her, helped her sit down, told her it was over. She was safe. Her siblings were in prison for a very long time. But as the police led James and Victoria away, James looked back at me one last time. His face was expressionless, but his eyes held a promise of revenge that made my blood run cold. The Ashfords had money. They had connections. And rich people don't stay in prison long unless you bury them under so much evidence they never see daylight again. I had work to do. The trial took 8 months. I testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every piece of evidence Catherine had gathered, every transaction, every document. The prosecutor built a case that was airtight: embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted murder. Marcus Vane got arrested 2 weeks after James and Victoria. Turns out when you flip on your wealthy clients to save your own skin, you become very cooperative. His testimony about James hiring him to kill Catherine was the nail in the coffin. James got 25 years. Victoria got 20. Marcus got 15 with the possibility of parole if he kept cooperating. The Ashford Foundation's money was frozen, investigated, and eventually restructured under federal oversight. Catherine inherited her trust fund on her 30th birthday. She donated most of it to charity, the real kind, with oversight and accountability. She moved to Seattle, started over with a new name and a quiet life. Last I heard, she was working in an art gallery and dating a high school teacher. She sent me a Christmas card every year, always with the same message: "Thank you for believing me." See, as for me, I went back to my office above Chen's Golden Dragon, back to the flickering neon sign and the coffee maker that's held together with hope and duct tape. The case paid well enough that I finally fixed that filing cabinet and bought a new chair that doesn't groan every time I lean back. But I think about that night in the warehouse sometimes. How close it came. How if Detective Chun hadn't been following me, I'd be another body in an unsolved case, another forgotten PI who stuck his nose where it didn't belong. The thing about being a detective is that you see the worst of human nature. You see what people become when money and power are on the line. You see families destroy each other, love twisted into weapons, trust turned into traps. But you also see the Catherine Ashford of the world, the ones who stand up even when it costs them everything, the ones who choose right over easy, truth over comfort. Those are the cases that remind me why I do this job, why I keep grinding away in this crappy office with its smell of fried rice and its broken furniture. Because somebody has to stand up for the people who can't stand up for themselves. The name's Frank Murray. I'm a private investigator. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, and most of my cases aren't interesting, but I get the job done. And sometimes that's enough to save a life. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications when the next Frank Murray case drops. There are more mysteries to solve, more criminals to catch, and more stories waiting in the dark corners of the city. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.